Hello, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Natasha Bolvin. She is a certified dream and soul guide from Toronto, Canada. And today we're going to be talking about how our dreams can guide us into finding our life purpose, because this is something really cool that Natasha has been doing lately, and I really want to know more about it. And how they guide us in general in our day-to-day life and in times of crisis. So, welcome, Natasha. I'm very, very happy to have you here. I've been looking to this conversation for a long time. So, do you maybe want to start by saying a little bit more about this dream and soul guide thing? Like, what are you doing exactly?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and be in this conversation with you. We met live at the International Association for the Study of Dreams conference in the Netherlands last year, and it was great. You right away made me feel so welcome, and so it was great meeting you live. And I love dreams, very passionate about the dreaming world and what it can do and what it can open up for people just like you. And I also work with ancestral and what I call root work or lineage work, right? And actually helping people develop their oracular gifts. So their psychic gifts, their intuitive gifts, their dreaming gifts, their empathic gifts. And so I don't see those things as separate things. I actually see them as inseparable. I think dreams really is such a primordial language. And so they open up that ancient and ancestral wisdom, and we get to interact and communicate in a multitude of ways that are still unfolding. And so those are my sort of three pillars in passion.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So I'm
Mhm.
curious about so many things, but do you want to maybe start by saying how did it all started for you and how did it, evolve since you first got interested in dreams and how did it continue through your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always been a strong dreamer since I was a kid, and dreaming was something that was talked about in my family
Mm.
since I was a child. I've been dream sharing with my parents. My dad was the first person that introduced me to out-of-body experiences when I was like 11, when I was sharing something with him, and my cousins all remember me talking about it. So it was always something that's very alive and present in my home. And so by default, dream sharing was just something that was a normal practice to the point that I actually didn't really recognize it as a thing that
Mm.
was sort of a strong quality. I just assumed everybody kind of lived this way. In 2003, though, is when it really kind of kicked into high gear for me, where suddenly my dreaming world just lit right up and was constant. And that was really sort of the entry into my own sort of spiritual enlightenment or evolution. And I started recording my dreams at that point. And started interpreting them and becoming kind of the de facto, dream interpreter at work, amongst my
Mhm.
friends. And so recently just uncovered a letter that a friend wrote me in 2004 talking about, dreams and knowing how much I enjoy writing mine down. And it was like, oh my gosh, I have a witness. But yeah, it's been with me so much so that it's only really been recent for me, just the last few years, where I was like, I sat there, well, obviously through a series of dreams, of course, it came through and, where I felt like I was summoned almost. And inside of those dreams, it was kind of showing me that I was learning something or supposed to be teaching something. It was something that was kind of really out of the box. I was wearing this like cape, like it was in the Matrix, and very renegade, and it was elements of the old world, like old doilies, and then the new world with new sort of revolutionary things. And then there were key words that were coming up, and it was over a course of time. And I remember, I don't know where the question came from, but it was like, what is the thing you love talking about that you never get bored of?
Mm.
And I went, oh my God, dreams.
Yeah.
And then a friend who is a spiritual mentor, sharing with her my stuff, she was like, how often do you like have these kinds of dreams? And I was like, well, I recall and record about 4 to 5 times a week. And she went, huh, like that. And it was like this trigger. And I went, oh my gosh. And it all made sense. And here we are. And then I
Yeah.
realized I'd already written, hundreds and hundreds. I was like, I have hundreds and hundreds of dreams that I've written down. Like it's so alive in me. It just, I guess, a sense of readiness or being, like I said, being summoned to, step forward with it.
What you said, it really resonates with me because my story, it's very similar, just with the one big difference is that dreaming was not encouraged in my household. And I
Mhm.
was actually even discouraged from looking, within, so to speak, any practices that were just different than the tradition that I grew up with were actually discouraged. Like there was fear that I guess with certain religions, it can happen that, there is a fear that a person maybe stop becoming religious because they discover their own true maybe power or they understand God in different way and so on and so on. So
Mm.
in my home, dreams were discouraged. It was more like, oh, it was just a dream or like nobody would listen to it. But I remember having this passion for dreaming and I always been a very vivid dreamer as well. And not that long ago I actually remembered something that I completely forgot for such a long time, that when I was in the middle school, like probably around, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 11, like I actually wanted to open a dream club with my classmates. Like I remember it, somehow I don't remember when this memory came back to me, that before we went for summer vacation I said to everyone, like, listen, like, let's write our dreams during summer. And then when we are back in September, we're gonna talk about it and like gonna see maybe there's like some magical stuff happening there and so on. And this never happened actually. But I do remember that I wrote some dreams. It just never, happened with my friends. But I was like, wow, it was strong even back then. And I did not remember that. Yeah.
And it's like now you can look back and now you see all the dots that kind of led to this point, right? Because, you and I were chatting before, and, I think talking about this or putting this out into the world, I mean, listen, it comes from a place within.
Yeah.
You don't even understand it, right? Because nobody kind of randomly chooses dreams, goes, hey, I want to make a lot of money. Let me talk about dreams. I mean, no, nobody chooses this, right? So it really is one of those things. When you look back, it's just so funny to look back. And then I love those like sweet memories that kind of come back and reassure you that this was sort of divinely coded in you, right?
Yeah, something like that. Exactly, divinely coded. I really love this expression. So, when you introduced yourself, you mentioned something about the root work, like discovering this blueprint. This is, I think, something that I've seen popping up on your Instagram a lot, and it's really, I'm
Mhm.
I'm really curious about that. So, can you tell me more
Mhm.
about it? Like what you do, how you do, what's the result?
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize I was going to start talking about ancestral work, right? Talking about our lineage and talking about what I call root work, right? The roots, like if we're, our family tree is what's visible, but the root system is actually what feeds into
Right.
to make that tree flourish. And when you uncut, when you dive deeper into that, you can kind of see the patterns, all of the patterns actually, and all of the influences that make you uniquely you and contribute to your operating system. But that seed was planted a couple years ago,
Mm.
actually, and in small ways, which culminated this past March during the first blood moon eclipse. And we have one coming up this week. So I think it's so cool that I'm talking to you right now. But I had, you know, incredible dreams that were like so vivid. And in the dreams, it was something with my, great great grandfather. I don't know this person, right? I have no idea who they
Yeah.
are. But I was like on a boat and all of my paternal side of my family were all there. And we were dressed in white, and there was these elements and threads of,
Mm.
and it felt very ethereal, but it was so clear, like I can see it now. And so it was one of those dreams that just feels like otherworldly. And they kept having this reference that during that week, like the dreaming was so vivid and the lucid and astral, and I had, it just felt and even an interdimensional sort of
Yeah.
feeling of
Yeah.
contact in the dream all happened. And then suddenly everything from the last 2 years kind of came together. I was like, oh my gosh, I went to Barbados last November for my cousin's birthday. And the minute I landed, and her and my best friend, remember, I literally, when I stood on the land, I was like, I had a charge come through my legs. And they remember me saying it. I'm like, oh my God, there's this, like, I feel like this, like, it's like this energy coming through my legs. And so then I get on the internet when I come home and I start researching all these things and understanding the transatlantic labor trade. And all of a sudden, I'm opening up to this whole world of, my own family's migration, system and plan that
Yeah.
happened. And then I had this dream in this past March, and it was like, boom. And I was like,
Wow.
oh my gosh. And so the ancestral aspect of it, it was like clear. It became crystal clear how important that is. You don't need to know your relatives, like you don't need to know specifically what they did, but understanding what has contributed to your to where you are now, the patterns, the things that, so for example, it's like, you know, you have a family that may have been born in, you've got parents that were born in another country, they move to another country, and in that movement, you assimilate. They assimilate, they become, masks are being worn so
Yeah.
that you can identify, that you can fit in, right? You suspend some of your other parts of your identity in order to form a new one. Well, then you have children. Now, those children now will be nurtured through this new way, but still have some of those elements present. And it goes on and on. Then they move to another country, go to school somewhere else, and you've got to fit in now. You've got to be
Yeah.
this certain. And, they show us through epigenetics, now there's studies with, that have shown us that your DNA kind of changes with this gene expression kind of alters through all of this. So, what are all the things that have contributed, you know, colonization, caste systems, class systems, colorism, war is a big one. And, I think about the effects going forward, right? We're the ancestors for the future generations, right? So they're now going to have, that the effects of that as well. And how impactful is that? And so all of that was stimulated from a dream that I had. And then suddenly the dots were all connected over the journeys that I've had the last couple of years. So super profoundly impacted by that. So the ancestral dreaming, which I think is very alive in the field, because I know Linda Yale Schiller is coming out with a book called
Oh, I
Ancestral
can't
Dream.
wait also to
I
read the
can't wait
book.
for it either. I'm like,
Yeah.
get this book out. In my Diamond Dreams program, for example, I have a 7 facets framework that I created, and one of them is ancestral because it is something that, I feel like people have that in them where they may not understand. Like I have a lot of people that reach out to me who are like, I want to stop my dreaming
Yeah.
and they want to quiet the voices and things like that. Meanwhile, it could be something that's trying to make a connection to you,
Of course.
and it can actually be supportive. So, like, can we work with that? And so, I really think ancestral work is huge. The oracle work that I'm doing and what you're referencing was called Own Your Oracle, because my firm belief and knowing is that we're divinely coded with a framework within ourselves, that we're kind of born into, right? And we take on, we all have intuition. We all
Right.
have intuition. We all have empathy and we all dream.
Yes.
Okay, so if we have those three pillars, right, then it means that we have them in different ways and we wield our wand in different ways. So when they say somebody has this, psychic gift or this special gift, well, we all have gifts. And we're kind of trained to look at the other guy and think that they've got something better than us. I've spent my
Yeah.
whole life doing that
Yeah.
and looking over and going, and so I was inspired to create this because speaking to so many people about their dreams,
Yeah.
speaking to so many people in, different kind of communities and conscious communities, even though we know that we've got our intuition and our felt sense that we can get into, we still override it with doubt.
That's true.
And I was like, you know what? This needs to stop. You need to see that you are divinely coded with something because, and once you see what your uniqueness is, then you can own it. And that was so when you know it, you can own it. And now, instead of kind of, I got this feeling, but nah, instead of doing that, going, oh yeah, no, I know. I know.
Yeah,
My body told me, right? And
exactly.
it's
Oh,
being able to discern with that. So that's something that I'm really proud of. And also a way to tap into the fact that dreams also belong there in
that's
the
true.
world of intuition and empathy as something that you can lean into, you know?
Yeah, that's it's very beautifully said. And it's also one of my missions, and I always talk about it. Like when you said, think about this thing that you can talk about forever without getting tired, it's like it's definitely dreams. But it also, I believe that one of our biggest purposes in life is to really discover ourselves and who we really are and what we really want. And this is really connected to what you say, like what our gifts are, what our purpose is, and what our intuition is telling us. And for me, I also had like such a like breakthrough dream when I finally got it after searching for so long that, as you said, like always believing that someone else has the answer, right? That someone else knows better. And going through like different religions and philosophies, and I traveled whole world and carrying the same feeling that you mentioned before, like, oh, like the other guy knows better, or is more talented, or is more
Yes.
special, or it's more something. And then in that dream, I finally understood through that dream that that's not true. Like we are all equally special, and most importantly, we all know where our truth is, when our north is, where our path is. So if we trust this, as you said, acknowledge it and then trust it, because this is also kind of like the third step. I would say, like, there is the know it, acknowledge the it, and then trust it, right? And this may be sometimes the hardest step, but once you trust it, so many things just open for you, and you really start to live your
Absolutely.
life authentically. And it may not be the most comfortable thing, but I cannot just do it any other way.
Yeah, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So when you ask me, what do I do? How do I
Yeah.
introduce you? It's like Dreamwork and Soul Guide. Obviously, it's like what, okay, but what do you do? Even after that. And it's hard to explain, but I think if I had to really dial it down to
Yeah.
one thing, I'm a soul mirror. I
Mm.
want people to see their true power reflected back through me because I am like, I feel like everybody's a freaking oracle walking around and you have no idea. You have no idea, And I'm like, we are connected, like the cosmos, to the world, to each other. And we're just walking around thinking that we're not special and we're not this. And I'm like, no, this is my mission. I'm a soul mirror so that you can see your true power, claim it, own it, walk with it, and be at one with it. And I agree with you when you said, that if, that being the sort of ultimate mission, right? Our soul evolution is really to discover, that we are this magical being, or what I'll say, one with the divine. Like that's how I really feel and I see it. And I think too, for people that are wanting to develop their clair gifts, whether they're clairsentient and claircognizant, whatever, whatever. If you want to, develop that clear-sightedness, dreams. Dreams are such a training ground. They simulate for
Yeah.
us. It's like so crazy that it's like, I'm like, how do I make this person understand that, you know, if you can develop this in your dream, like if you tune into your dream life, it will actually carry out into the real world. And Robert Moss, talks about kairos dreaming, right? Which is when you kind of see those symbols and then you see it out in the real world, right? That synchronistic symbolism and signs. And I call it dream clairvoyance. I'm keeping the woo in, okay?
Yeah,
And
same here. Bring it on.
and and so when you start to see like the symbolism, like I dreamt of licorice, and next thing you know, this girl was at the office going, "Hey, do you want some licorice?" Never happens. Like I haven't had licorice in years, right? And it was just like, Oh my gosh, right? And it's like, but little things like that, when you kind of tune into the little things, you know, I always say when you see the magic, when you choose to see the magic is there.
Yes.
And it's not about, hey, I'm living my life like a little Tinkerbell and I've got no problems and blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
No, I'm still earthbound. I'm still existing in this plane of the dream,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm cognizant of that I'm still, in this world of polarity, right? So it doesn't mean that living a magical life means you are problem free. It's understanding that this is actually part of the dharma of your life, you know? So
Yeah. Definitely. So I'm wondering, like, how do you help people discover their oracle? Like, do you use, I don't know, astrology, or do you dream on it, or do you channel it? Like, how does it work?
I definitely don't want it, I didn't want it to be a straight channel. Um,
Okay.
because then it's still part of me.
Right.
And I wanted it to be about the person
Hmm.
having it's their sovereign being. I use the natal chart, oldest tool out there, right? Along with dreaming, breathing, and then we've got astrology. Um, but so I use the birth time, and the birth time gives me the flight path. And from the flight path, I'm able to extrapolate,
Mm.
and things like human design and gene keys does this, but there isn't any other thing out there that actually zeroes in on the three key things which I'm focused on, which is intuition, empathy, and dreaming. Um, and so there's a flight path that we took. And whether someone chooses to believe it or not, once they kind of dive into it, it's like mind blowing how the accuracy is crazy. It's like almost it's undeniable at that point. And the person that kind of says, no, this isn't real, you haven't dived into it enough to believe it. Fine, no problem. But I use that along with my ability to interpret,
Yeah.
or what I would say, maybe not interpret, but to translate abstract information and distill it in a way that makes perfect sense and comes through the vessel. So some of it is channeled because it's information that's kind of being filtered through me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd say it's a combination of both, but I use key elements within their chart that most people overlook.
Mm.
And so I had a birth chart reading by a professional astrologist, Gina Govas, a few months ago, which we posted, we did a live together. But like it blew my mind, right? I'd already known a lot about astrology,
Yeah.
but opened up this other channel. So, as you know, in January, I quit my full-time job to talk about and to pursue and my practice of my dream work and soul work practice. So I have this reading, and so this was actually in April, and all of a sudden after it was like my mind exploded. It was like I saw something that I hadn't seen before. And all of a sudden, I started tuning into other parts of the chart that often get overlooked by most people. Most people are focused
Mm.
on the sun sign, the moon sign, the rising sign. And I wasn't focused on any of that. I was now in the houses. So eighth house, 12th house, third house, ninth house. Like it just started to come alive. And I was paying attention to, different kinds of planets and things like that. And so all of a sudden, it was as if I had seen, I saw everything. I saw where the intuition lies. I saw where the dreaming place. I saw it all. And then next thing you know, for like 4 days, I'm to like 3 in the morning, I'm typing and typing and typing, and I just can't, stop trying to get it all out of me and research and this and that to the point that my knuckles were swollen and I had to like go to sleep with like lavender and peppermint to try to. So I laid off the computer for like 5 days because I literally thought I was like, am I gonna create arthritis? Like
Oh
I even Googled
no.
that. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Wow.
But it was just flowing through out of me.
Wow.
And I felt like a mad scientist. And then it birthed. So this wasn't even an offering that was in my mirror. at the beginning of the year. It
Yeah.
came through a thing, so it's interesting, as we were talking about what life has been like, through this impactful 8 months of this year of being in full-time practice. There are things I'm talking about that I didn't even weren't even in my zone, but they came through in dreams and real world and all of these things. These dots are connecting. And so kind of going back to even Own Your Oracle, it was like that very thing where I'm seeing all of these elements, I'm putting it together, I'm owning my oracle.
Right.
Now I want to help people, see what I'm seeing, right? So it's just so interesting how it all comes together, you know?
That's really beautiful. And did you have any, like, besides the reading, the astrology reading, did you have any dreams that were maybe pointing into that direction, or something that came through dreams that help you like create this thing? Or it was purely the reading itself and then the download that you got?
Well, it's interesting, actually, now that you're asking me that question, because one of the dreams that I had the month before during the eclipse was I was getting, pictures of lotus flower. I was getting pictures of lotus flowers, people that were inside of the dream, this leather-bound book that looked almost ancient, a watch. I was in a jewelry store with a counter where I was looking at all of these different watches. So when I think about the birth time, when I think about this ancient wisdom, when I think about it was like all of these tools and elements, and then there was one where it was an oracle deck, and I was on a ship that was sailing and pools of water and pulling cards, and it was like all of these little elements and symbols that I believe were actually forming the basis for this,
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
And that's why this is a very, very warm recommendation to everyone to write down your dreams, because I hear it so often like, no, I don't have any special dreams, like I don't dream or wherever. But then that's what happens if you never write down your dreams. You will never know if you had like precognitive dream or dream pointing into something important for you, or even if you have recurring dreams, if you never write them down, right? Like if you didn't perhaps written this dream down.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right because the thing is, we're not going to remember. Like it's just not going to happen, And for people like us who, actively are in relationship with our dreams, like we don't remember everything unless we write them down either, right? Because there's so many that we're writing down that it's impossible for us to recall every single one. So if you've only got a few that are coming through and you don't write them down, of course you're going to lose it. And then you're like, I never dream. But it's funny because those same people, like I was at an event last night and there was a gentleman there who had last year, actually at this time, told me, he goes, I never dream. He actually identified himself as with aphantasia.
Mhm.
They don't dream and vision. They're
Yeah,
not
like they can imagine.
dream and
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, next thing you know, he's telling me a whole vivid dream story.
Ah,
And I'm thinking, wait a second, this was the same guy. So over time and being at different events where I've been speaking and taking people through guided imagery sessions and things like that, well, guess what? It opens up when you start to pay attention and
exactly.
writing them down, recording them however you need to get it out in that, window of time. Do it because it will blow your mind. And what you brought up about the precognitive, like when you actually flip back and you see something that ended up happening and you're like, oh my goodness, right? It
Exactly.
blows your mind, but it also tunes you into the magic. It tunes you into the divinity of the world that we live in. Like
Yeah.
we're just here as humans, like on this mud ball flying through the sky, flying through the, cosmos in this dark space. And it's like, there's a lot that we don't know, but it reinforces that, and I use the word magic a lot, and I'm not talking about hocus pocus magic,
Yeah.
right? But that magic of, oh my God, we're here. Like, wow.
Yeah,
And we're able to talk to each other in real time over a screen
that's
as though we
true.
were sitting in front of each other having a tea, like, right? So just
Yeah.
reminders.
You can see everything as magic or nothing as magic,
Yeah.
So it's really a point of view and perspective, I believe. But I totally agree with you. And I wanted to ask you, so when you decided to do this shift in your career, in the profession, that you want to dedicate more time, like full time into dreams and soul work and so on and so on. First of all, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision because changes are usually not that easy. And I was wondering if you got like dreams that help you making this decision, or when you already made this decision and were facing obstacles, if there were dreams that you would like to share that help you like continue on this path.
The thing is that I knew that I was moving towards this path before the actual moment happened, right?
Right.
So it certainly wasn't something that was, sudden by any means, but I had dreams of coworkers, bosses, like all the time,
Yeah.
right? And in unfavorable, saying things that I didn't like, or there were interactions in there. Most of my dreams were really just focused on me and the shadows that I was working with at that time, because versus the actual decision of it.
Yeah.
Um, so what I was working through before I actually made the decision was, my own sense of identity.
Mm.
And it's actually still a theme that's present right now. But going back then, it was feeling, the themes of not being good enough, or my own fears of, and really a lot of it had to do with just putting myself out there.
Right.
So I had a lot of imposter syndrome style dreams,
What
and
would this stream be like? Can you recall any like example? I love giving the listeners like some specific examples so they can really
yeah.
relate to it.
So, for example, I had a dream where I was giving out like hundreds, like stacks. I was paying things with stacks of counterfeit bills. And then I was
Interesting.
afraid of getting caught,
Yeah.
right? But it was stacks of counterfeit bills. And then that dream actually ended up coming up right before I was to give a workshop when I was at a
Yeah.
recent retreat. And I thought, oh my gosh, the connection there, because but this time, recently, it wasn't as vivid as when I first had it. So that's something that I would say would be more of a recurrent thing that kind of, and then another one that happened prior to that was I was around a fire. So it was like we were in ancient times, and it was like almost cavemen like style type. Like we
Yeah.
were in like this fur thing, and we're around a fire. And there were two people who are the leaders of the organization who are known to me. They're leaders. And I was telling them like I just couldn't do this anymore. I can't, I couldn't do this anymore, this role or what they were tasking me to do. And then they were telling me off, like, and telling me to get out of here and da 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 da. And I remember feeling excluded and feeling not part, like, where do I belong now?
Mm.
Right.
Wow.
And so that one was really vivid, actually. Like, I woke up, I voice noted to a friend and like the whole thing, right? Because I was like, oh my God. So that one was really vivid. And it was really alive for me at that time because I was moving through feeling like my self-worth was dependent on how productive I am,
Mm.
always saying yes to helping. Like I'm the person when someone needs to write something or they need to get something done or whatever it might be. I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I didn't necessarily see it as people pleasing, although now I do see it in a way. But I always liked being the person who could deliver. Like I like being that person that gets things done, and that person that you can rely on. So I can, they're like, oh yeah, I need this. I'll be like, and then it's like, look how great you are, right? Thank you. I wouldn't have done this without you. However, there's a shadow to that. It's great being that person that people can come to. So in that dream, actually, I
Yeah.
realized that that was how I show myself self-love is through the validation of
Of
others.
other people. Yeah.
And so that was a big one. So there were those types of dreams that I would have. A lot of the ones that I have a lot to do with feeling excluded, or
Yeah.
if I don't do this, I'll be pushed out type of thing. And so that is really present for me. Mhm.
I really believe that many people can, first of all, relate to this feeling because we kind of been programmed this way, like in many cultures all around the world, like you've been told that you need to be good and you need to be this and that in order to be liked and you need to comply. And so we grow up thinking that if we comply and do things for others and be, in quotes, good girls or good boys, like we're going to be loved because
Yeah.
many times, unfortunately, parental love feels this way, right? We're being loved when we do something good as a children, and we're getting like maybe not the best treatment if we did something that they didn't like. So this, I feel like it's such a big theme collectively as well. And this really brings me to another point of like dream work and dreaming, the simple sharing of your dreams with others and having space to do that, safe space to do that, is because when you share this dream with me, it also resonates in the part of me that felt or is feeling the same way. And it creates instant connection. Like no matter we are far away, we come from different cultures, completely different beliefs, different, you can say we know we are not because we have a lot in common, but you know what I'm trying to say. It can be a person that is
Yes.
completely different, complete opposite of you. But then the dream is shared. And what happens is that in many, many cases, it resonates with another person and it touches something deeply inside this other person. And there is this instant connection that's being built, that it's beyond all the other noise, right? And yeah, it's
Absolutely.
just, yeah, I just love it. I just love it.
Yeah. And the thing is, and you're right, and that's why it's sort of one of my workshops at this retreat that I was at two
Yeah.
weeks ago was called The Lost Art of Dream Sharing. And I've
Mm,
been always somebody that needs to over intellectualize and add so many elements to things. And it's really been through the simple act of dream sharing that I've realized how incredible just that simple act of dream sharing actually is. And for the very reason that you're talking about, which is it allows another person to receive that reflection that may apply to their own life. We can relate to the things that one another. I mean, we didn't have the dream, but we can relate to the theme of the dream or what that person was
exactly.
going through. And so I think it's the ultimate sharing circle, to have in any case, right? I think so. My big vision is I want to see dream sharing in schools. I want to see dream
Yeah,
sharing in organizations. Like, why aren't we? Because, if you want to know if somebody's going through or processing a lot in their life, ask them what their dreaming life might be
of
like.
course.
That person's going through a lot. And you talked about crisis, right? It's like how do our dreams support us during crisis? I know Dr. Deidre Barrett wrote a thing on pandemic dreams. People's dreaming life had kicked up then, but people going through depression or whatever it might be, we know that dreaming life can kick up in a way and it feels very unfavorable for them. But it's actually a pointer, right, to some things that we can work through. And I'm actually thinking about another dream too that I had where I was kind of navigating because it's so reflective of so many things, but I had dreamed that I was in an office and I just found it actually. So while we are talking, but it was set up like a classroom. I was not myself, but I was an observer
Right.
and I saw two men. One was a boss, and they were a couple, but the relationship was filled with tension and anger. The boss seemed to have a pattern of being angry and controlling.
Mm,
In the last scene, he came in a rage, pulled out the gun, and fired into the ceiling. And there was the sense that the bullet could have gone through the roof and possibly injure someone. And I remember seeing myself, I remember being the observer in the dream
yeah.
going, oh my gosh, right? And I remember what I was navigating, right? I was navigating the professional aspects of what dynamics that were going on in the office.
Mm,
Even though we were all kind of getting along, but it was fake. Like
yeah.
there was, somebody who was sort of I guess, my protagonist. And, and then the boss kind of firing in the roof but not really doing anything. They're trying to control a situation, but their way of controlling is actually just firing into the ceiling. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? It
No.
ends up being, and that
Yeah.
actually was representative of what was going on in my life with a boss that was trying to, mediate amongst all of us and things like that. And so there was this, and I feel like with the two men too, there was this sort of, there were a couple, but they were kind of also, there was this imbalanced sense of power. So sometimes we're trying to make things work because I was trying to make things work,
Yeah.
right? But it's not working. No matter how, polite or trying to, it just the dynamic wasn't working. So it really felt very reflective of that time of what I was actually going through. I've always been somebody that doesn't really, people can see my mood, but I don't necessarily show emotion.
Okay.
Like I'll be very stoic when I need to be, right? But on the inside, I'm feeling it, And so it was really the frustration, feeling unsupported, feeling scared. And there was another one too. This is a big one where I saw, I know it's weird, but I saw myself as a cooked bear, a cooked little bear cub, and she was about to cut into me,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, that was my observer self observing
Yeah.
a cooked little bear that she was about to cut into, right? So there were some like, yeah,
Yeah,
some
that's very powerful imaginary. So,
yeah.
like for you and me, like we know that dream speaks in symbols and it's just very powerful imaginary. But like, let's say someone comes to you and say like, "Wow, Natasha, so I have this dream and it's like so crazy. Am I crazy? Like it's all like, you know, just too much for me." What advice would you give to a person? Like, what would you tell them to do with such a dream? Because I think that many people get discouraged because they have very powerful imaginary in dreams and they have absolutely no idea how to deal with it because most of the times it's also scary. So legit that they don't want to deal with it, right?
And, one of the things that I always say is, in that moment, it's kind of a reassuring thing. Hey, our dreams are here to support us, right?
Yeah.
Our dreams are here to support us. So even though it feels unfavorable and scary, let's see what this dream might be. Let's work with this dream. Let's see what it might be telling us to help us, right? And I think that's one of the things with the reassurance piece
Mm.
of our dreams are always here to support us, even though it may feel like a so-called, bad dream,
Yeah.
right? Dreams are actually neutral. And so the dream is the dream, right? And I think what can we learn from this dream? What can we process from this dream? What could this dream be pointing towards us? So I think the first thing is, so I have this acronym. I use dreams as an acronym. I know, so original. But the first D is detach and discern.
Okay.
So oftentimes people will they've had an unfavorable dream, and then what they do is they jump into judging the dream as bad and judging themselves for having the dream to
Right.
begin with. Like,
Totally.
what is wrong with me? And it's like, nothing's wrong with you, right? Nothing's wrong with you. The dream is, it's got a lot of rich symbolism in it. Let's just step back. Let's kind of zoom out, you know, and start to look at it, so start to look at each kind of symbol and embodied dream work, when we're going into different things. I think for me too, it's also important to ask permission as well for the person. Like, would you like to re-enter this dream? Because
Of
not
course.
everybody has a dream they want to re-enter. Someone that had something that was it was sexually charged, but not in a good way. And so very uncomfortable. No, they don't want to go back into that dream. Right. So being cognizant, I think, as the dream worker, right, as the dream guide is super important to establish that and to establish a sense of safety. But I think really the first thing that I always say is let's detach and discern. Like, so just suspend the judgment, suspend, your self-judgment for having it. We all have weird dreams. Like we've all had weird dreams, right? And dreams that, listen, I will never tell anybody because I just don't want you to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
that's
going
perfectly
to.
fine. But also,
And
this is, I think it comes, we are back circling to the same thing about how dreams are not important part of our everyday life, and we don't share them enough to know that everyone has very crazy dreams. Because if everyone knew, like what you say, it's just symbols and it's just a way of dreams trying to show you something, and it doesn't mean anything bad or weird or crazy about you, like I believe people would feel so much more comfortable sharing their dreams, like you said, like teaching the children to share their dreams. Like when I work with someone or I have a workshop or speak with someone about dreams, and then I always ask them, like, do you have children? Like, yeah, okay, encourage them to share their dreams with you. You're gonna learn about your child so much more than you could by just trying to have conversation with them, especially when they are small and they cannot articulate their emotions and feelings so well yet. So I always say that, like, just talk to them, ask them, did you dream? Do you remember your dream? Do you know what your dream is? You want to draw your dream? And like, it's such a wonderful also way to connect to your child, and also to already put a seed for hopefully a grown-up person that will want to,
yeah, and I
stay
mean, I
connected
think
to the dreams.
that kind of leads into, when parents say, well, it was just a dream. Well, you don't want to dismiss it.
No.
Like, what you want to do is kind of invite it, right? In a safe way. So I also say this thing, which is dreams are a neutral zone, actually. So the dream itself isn't judging you. The dream itself isn't a reflection of your worth. It is using symbolic language to uncover something, to reveal, reflect, or reassure you.
Yeah,
So let's work with that, and
exactly.
it's kind of stepping away from it. And it's so surprising because I'm sure you found this. I mean, I had someone that I did, and she did a testimonial and is okay with me sharing, but her whole life, she from a young age, she had a lot of trauma. And then she said, her dreaming life is like so crazy, but she's trying to get rid of it and like she's trying to stop it. And she's a medium. And I was like, okay, let's unpack one. Let's come into a session, and she was like, because it was like another one. Here's, she goes, she's learned to sort of dismiss them or flip them off as
Yeah.
like just part of her, trauma kind of still lingering. She was like, but I've done so much work. Like, why is it still here? I go, let's go into it. So we did an embodied dreamwork session. And in the end, she was blown away by the fact that the dream actually had this sort of very positive spin on it, that it ended up, she wasn't seeing that she was kind of this hero in the dream actually. And, you know, instead of going, I'm in a plane, it's about to crash, oh my God, ugh, once again, and just dismissing it. It was actually seeing how, she went up to the, pilot and she got into the cockpit and she actually helped to land and they had us, so when we were done, she was like, oh my, it just changed the game for her,
Yeah,
right? And it's so funny how quickly, we can, once we start to develop that relationship and maybe and change the way we approach the dream, going, hey, I had this dream. Okay, well, let me look at it now, and then, let me look at it from different ways, or let me get back into how did I feel in this dream? Because that's the other thing, right? How they feel inside of the dream is often can be different than if they woke up anxious and things like
of
that. So
course.
there's different ways to deal with it, but super powerful. Sometimes the bad dream isn't bad.
Yeah, I think that this is like a great, great line to sum up our conversation. And I hope also like an invitation, especially for people that don't really connect to their dreams too much, to maybe try to do that. And for people that have a lot of, in quotes, bad dreams, that maybe they're not that bad as they think. Because I believe there is like a gold in every dream. And as you gave perfect example, if we really stop to look into it, we can be surprised what we find there, and it's not necessarily need to be something unpleasant. So I would really, really love for everyone to just continue spreading the dreams and the importance of the dreams. And before we wrap up, I would like to ask you to share for you to share where people can find more information about you, about the beautiful offerings you have, and like if there's anything specific going on now or in the future that you would like to share.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share that. Yeah, so I go by Natasha Dreamseer on Instagram. I'm at natashadreamseer.com. You can sign up for my email. My emails are fun to write. I love writing them. So I call them my dream letter. And, those are fun. You can go a little bit longer and a little deeper for those that are interested in reading. Um, and I also have my Dreamseer AI, which is an attachment GPT. So listen, I know it's hard for everybody to write down their dreams every day, and sometimes you're just too tired. And you can also voice note in this, but it's a really cool little tool that will just start to develop the relationship to dreaming. That's what I really want to ignite with this because it's not going to be enough for you. Eventually, you'll outgrow this app, you'll be on your own, and that's
Mhm.
what I want for everybody. And yeah, stay tuned for all kinds of goodies, but I do embody dream work sessions as well, so as a private practice, and for anybody that is interested in psychedelic integration using DreamWorks. So that is kind of a little taste of what I do.
It's wonderful. And I'm going to add the link to your website and to your social to this podcast notes
Thank you.
so everyone can find you. And thank you so, so much, Natasha. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. And I feel like we could continue going and going. And
I
we didn't even
know. I'm
touch
like, are we
about
done
the,
yet?
yeah,
No,
like
don't make it end.
we haven't even touched on the AI that you created. I'm also so curious about it, but maybe for the next episode, we're going to
Yes.
keep that one. So thanks a lot again. And yeah, may the dream continue spreading all over.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.